Today we're going to take some time to talk about how to create an interactive Google slide. So most of the questions that I have received have been about how we can make things a little bit more engaging for our students on Google Slide by providing them with a feeling of manipulatives. So the first thing that I want to address is that the standard size for a Google slide is a 16:9 ratio. It looks like this. And this is a great size because it takes up, most of the screen. However, sometimes with the clip art that you're using or some of the other background traces that you may have, this may not work. It might be too stretched or it might work perfectly. So sometimes you have to kind of play around and figure out exactly what size canvas you'll need in order to fit the background that you would like to put in. So in my case, I need a 10 by 8. So I apply that and it becomes this lovely little rectangle here that we see now. So when I am creating a new resource, the first thing that I need to do is I need to change the background. So I'm going to right click, or for Mac users, it's a control click, and I'm going to click change background. Now I click choose image, and now I pull up the clip art that I would like to use. I'm going to pick it and drag it over. And now I click done. Now this particular piece of clip art, as you can see, it will stretch a little bit because it's just a little bit smaller than that 10 by 8 that I was telling you about. So it's a little elongated, and most of the time if you play around with the dimensions a little bit, you'll eventually get it to fit nicely. You can also layer backgrounds, but we'll save that for another video. So this is what it looks like right now. So the next thing that I would need to do is add in whatever content I'm looking to create. So if I'm trying to make a CVC like word sort or unscramble or something like that, I'm gonna create a box, which I've done here. I'm gonna change a couple of things just to make it a little bit more aesthetically appealing. And now I have my box. Okay, so now I'm going to find the CVC clip art that I need for this particular slide. So I picked a cat, I'm putting it into the rectangle, and then I will move on. So now I have my picture of my cat. I'm going to it's already highlighted. I can see it because it has the blue box around it. So now I'm going to hold down Shift and click on the big box around it. Now I have both of them highlighted. I can tell that because I have a blue box around the cat and my blue box around my rectangle. So the reason that I'm doing this is to make sure that it's perfectly centered. That's something that really bothers me if it's like slightly off center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Arrange, Align, Center, Align, Middle. And that just ensures that it is in fact in the middle. So if this weren't and it were like over here, I can still do the same thing. I can still click Align, Center, Align, Middle. And it will be perfectly placed right in the middle. I might just have to move it around altogether, which is fine. So now this is exactly the way that I need it. I don't want to change anything else about it. This is perfect. This is what I need as far as making sure that the kids can't move, any of these things. So there's other pieces that I will need eventually, but those are movable pieces. Once I have everything that I don't need to move, I need to pause for a minute. Now I click File, Download, and you can choose JPEG. It's a very common way to save your photos, so that may look familiar to you. You may just be like, oh, let me save it as a JPEG, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of times it's a smaller size, like for the computer as well. However, I prefer to save everything as a PNG. Ultimately, for these types of projects, it's a personal choice. So whichever one you decide to save it as is fine. I'm saving it as a PNG. I click it. Now it shows up at the bottom. I'm going to add a new slide, a blank one. And now I'm going to change the background and just drag that right on in. Now I can't change anything on this slide. So that's perfect. I have this one still, so that way I can make multiple copies of it by just clicking this and erasing that. And then I can put in my next thing and make a bunch of copies of different versions of this. So after I have done all of that, I would go in and I would add any of my movable pieces. So for this, I'm going to my movable resources. I need some letters. I'm trying to keep it simple. So I would go here and I find, let's see, what do I need? I need A. I'm going to hold down Command or Control if you're a PC user. T and C. So now I have all three of those highlighted in my Finder. And I'm just going to drag them right on out and over here. Now I can resize these. And you may notice that for some objects, if you are resizing from the corner, it creates a little bit of a problem because it won't hold the right size. So like if I'm trying to resize this and I'm not quite even and it's going to come up scrunched, you can solve that really easily. So if you have multiple things highlighted and you're trying to resize all three things at once just to save time and provide some consistency, hold down the Shift key as you do it and it'll keep it in proportion. So now I have my three letters. I'm going to keep them mixed up because I want my kids to put them in the right order. I would align these, make sure that they're all centered down the middle. So like if I'm not actually going to center them because otherwise they'd be in one big blob and we don't want that. So now I make sure that this is centered, and personally, to help my kids realize which resources are movable and which ones aren't, I find that making it into some type of 3D-ish looking-ish piece helps. So I do that by having them highlighted, and then I click Format Options, which you can also find up here, and then you would just click Format Options. It'll bring up the same menu on the side, and then I click Drop Shadow. So this is going to create a little bit of a shadow on each of these to just help it look a little bit more movable. So in this case, I don't really like the angle at which the drop shadow is, so I'm going to make a couple of adjustments. I'm going to highlight all three of these, which I can do by clicking on it and then clicking Shift to highlight all three, or I can also just drag my mouse right across. It highlights all three because the background is flattened and it's listed as a background, so it's not going to highlight that as well. So now personally, I prefer a 45-degree angle on these particular pieces, and then I'm going to increase the distance just a little bit to 4, just so that way it pops out just a little more. This will work for teachers who are just trying to add something a little bit more catchy, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and a little bit more interesting for their primary students. So that's the real quick and easy way to explain how to get started making some interactive slides for your kids.